Thoughts never spoken, feelings, they're the prices. Truth, truth never voiced. Welcome to the Unspoken Voices podcast with Chuck Ellis, where the rubber meets the road and the unspoken finds its voice. This is more than a podcast. This is a space for the thoughts you've been holding in, the conversation you've been avoiding, the feelings you've been struggling to explain. It's a platform for honesty, a safe place for courage, and voice for those who haven't found theirs yet. Here we don't run from real life. We face it. Whether you're calling in to share your story or listening because you're not ready to speak yet, this platform was built for you. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's really going on. This is the Unspoken Voices podcast.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in and spending some time with me tonight so we can talk about some viable subjects that appears to be for our youth. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Man, I like that intro myself. I really do. And it says a lot for where I've come from and what I'm doing currently. So tonight we're going to be talking about being raised by the system, trauma, truth, and untapped potential. I think this is a very, very important topic as we tend to speak to individuals as they are in institutions, coming out of institutions. And I really want to address the fact that that's what's building our society coming up. So when we talk about systems, I say some children are raised by families and others are raised by systems. And when institutions become a framework of childhood, foster care, group homes, juvenile justice, attachment phrase. So trauma is not just a moment, it's a pattern. And it looks like defiance, but it's survival. So the truth is that systems can protect us, but they can also confine us. And within these systems, there are untapped potential, intelligence, leadership, captivity, resilience. Often all of this is go unseen. And tonight, we want to break the silence. We want to speak the truth. And we want to believe in that potential, or that untapped potential that these youth have. And as I speak on this, being as though I'm not I lived through it. That's one. So I have 100% vested interest in it. However, from a clinical standpoint, I think that it was very important for me to address this issue with someone that has the knowledge, the education to be able to get it all taken care of. So tonight, one of my esteemed guests will be Miss Trevana Eades. And to give y'all a little background on Trevana, she's a licensed mental health therapist. She's a doctoral candidate, counselor, education, and supervision, which focuses on holistic centered work. Trevana has a BA from Bucknell University, and she has a master's from Bowie State University. Trevana also has a bachelor's award for the Nexus of Woodburn Family Healing, and be very proud of her. She's a doctoral graduate. She's a doctoral, expected to be a doctoral graduate in May of 2026. So with that being said, I'd like to bring on Trevana as I introduced her to y'all, and we can go from here. Hey, Trevana.
Hey, Chuck, thank you so much for inviting me here today. This is Super, super important. This topic that we are discussing is what is going to allow us to make positive impacts for the youth, because the youth is our future. And so I know that you mentioned institutionalization and what that is. And so I think that you did a great job of defining that, because when we think about institutionalization of youth, right, we think about them being in placements that are not with their families, right? We're looking at them being in placements that may be group homes, foster homes. It could be residential treatment centers. It could be juvenile detention centers or correctional facilities, or even psychiatric hospitals. And that's what we're seeing a lot of in this day and age with youth today.
Okay. So I would ask you, well, I would ask the guests, because the guests, when they look at it, we've already defined institutionalization of youth. But sometimes, when they hear it and they don't hear the clinical definition, they think of what we just spoke about. They spoke
Yes.
about, institutions and things of that nature. Is there something different, or a clinical aspect when we talk about institutionalization of youth that is actually being used in that form, or is this overall definition what we gave, is that what we are talking about?
So when we're thinking about the clinical aspect of institutionalization, we, like I said, we are in a day and age where mental health is now being considered as taking precedent for a lot of youth. So when we look at these facilities are providing mental health treatment. They are providing med management, providing clinical diagnoses for those who, ascribe to a diagnosis, and also just providing them with therapy.
Okay, I understand that. And as a part of your educational background, for John Hopkins, you was in John Hopkins Brain Sciences internship. So when I looked at that, this question came to mind because I was thinking from your perspective as a therapist and a doctoral researcher, how does growing up inside structured systems shape a young person's brain or sense of self?
Okay. So when we think about the structured sensors, we also want to think that the reality of it is that not all of them are going to have everyone's best intent in
Mm,
heart, right? And so
yeah,
for some of the systems, they are providing youth with the opportunity to have a sense of self that is a sense of self-worth, a sense of understanding, a sense of confidence. However, with some of the systems, right, just due to lack of knowledge, and things of that sort, and just the system itself, right, that you have the systems that are kind of negatively impacting them, because it is providing a system of confinement, right? It is impacting them in a way where they're not really understanding how the world works, because they're so used to the system, and the system does not mimic the reality. And understanding that for a while they may be in a system, but when they age out of the system, they have to be able to thrive in society. And so are these systems really providing them with the tools needed for them to be able to thrive and be viable members of society?
that's very crucial. And even I would say that would even go to our current public education system. You
Yes.
know, for the fact that we're not just talking about youth and in a facility, but all the schools, some schools are subpar and may not be given um, youth and our the tools to go out and find good jobs, or give them the right direction to be able to become productive citizens. Some of them just get passed through and passed by. Now, when I talk about being passed through and passed by, um, when we see people, do we look at kids now as that they've been through trauma? Because we often misunderstand that about youth. When it comes to people that's in youth homes and things of that nature, the behavioral aspect of it, you're like, oh, they some bad kids. But is that an object of misplaced judgment where we don't
So I,
see the trauma?
so I want to bring up a point that you just made when we think about like the school system. When we think about the school system, right? Teachers are not being taught the mental health aspect of it, right? They're only taught the curriculum for them to be able to pass tests and things of that sort, right? However, in order for them to be good as a student, right, they have to be good as a human first. So if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs need to be met. If those basic needs, such as food, water, shelter, and safety, aren't met, then that's going to impact how they show up. So now when we lead to the point of is their behaviors of troubled youth now covering the trauma that they're experiencing, I would say yes. Because at the end of the day, you have a lot of youth who are experiencing a lot of trauma, who have experienced trauma that many people may not even know about. And so if we look at people that's inside of the systems, foster homes, we know that they experienced some trauma because that's how they got to that foster home, that group home, that psychiatric hospital. But when you really sit down, you don't know a lot of the story. You only know what they show up as.
Okay. Yeah, well, as far as what they show up as, so that means that comes to mainly why the reason we here, mainly pretty much why the reason that I've created this podcast, in order for individuals that may have been through these type of circumstances to be able to hear the elements that other people see and understand about them. There are other aspects where as though, they're misunderstood.
Yes.
So if anybody is in the audience or any of the onlookers, y'all feel as though y'all have been misunderstood. You've been through the system. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't have to always be negative. You could have made it through the system and came out positive and did something very instrumental. If that be the case, then hey, come on in, send me an email, check it out. And hey, I'd like to share your story as well. So we need to talk about these things because a lot of people don't talk about them online or in public forums. These are things that go on behind closed doors. So I would say that, in your work, Trevana, where do you see brilliance or talent being overlooked simply because someone grew up inside of an institution?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I see it all the time. So I work with primarily youth. However, I work with adults as well. And so what I tell, because I do a lot of training for staff inside of schools and mental health facilities, just kind of connecting the pieces. And so for me, what I tell staff all the time is that youth grow up. So you may end up sitting on the same side of the table of someone who was inside of this facility, someone whose voice was taken away from them, someone who may have felt unheard or misjudged inside of these systems. And so what the reality of it is that this space and what we're doing now is really trying to provide people an opportunity to get a voice. Because a lot of times their voices are silenced.
Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about voices being silent in that framework, how do we differentiate the fact between care and containment? Mm-hmm. Because we get a lot of youth in a facility, but they're just there. Some people say, hey, we just here to hold you here. But what happens? What's the difference between the care factor and the containment factor?
So I think it goes back to an individual level. So whatever system that they're going to be a part of, there's going to be people that are there just to be there, right? And then you're going to have people who there that are going to show that care, that are going to be genuine, that are showing up every day because they want to make a genuine difference, right? And so the difference of someone that is just containing someone, right, is what they're pouring into these youth. What opportunities, what resources are available for them, right? Because you have some places that are caring for youth and they are providing them with resources to say, hey, once you leave this facility, this is what school looks like for you. These are job opportunities for you. Hey, you're 18, you're about to, graduate. However, you only have credits as a 9th grader, right? Giving you opportunities to see what the future looks like. So when we look at care versus containment, we really think about what are they doing? How are they assisting these youth that are inside of their facilities to provide them the opportunity to be viable citizens, but also to improve their quality of life?
Okay. And that's a very important factor because it rolls over even into adulthood. And adult facilities, you know,
Yes.
whether it be even whether it be colleges. And when I think about college, I think about this because a lot of kids go through some things unheard of and unseen. And when I ask about this, what about the attachment disruption and identity development when it comes
Mhm.
to that could be even children, it could be adolescents, it could be adults. What is your viewpoint from that?
So when you think about attachment, you think about certain people. I'm not going to try to go to um, sciencey, right? But when you're
Ah,
younger, that's when your attachment style is created, right? So but from kind of like birth up until 5 or 6, that's when you develop those attachment styles, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. And as you continue to matriculate through life, they will play a role in every environment that you're in, every relationship that you're in, whether it's platonic or romantic, just based on your brain formation from those pivotal years, right? And so
ooh,
when we think about attachment, you may have a lot of people who are in these systems that have unhealthy attachment styles just due to the trauma that they've experienced, due to the trauma that have led them to be where they are, right? So we think about, I've experienced a lot of youth who have unhealthy attachment styles due to the instability growing up, right? That maybe mom and dad wasn't there consistently. Maybe they were in and out different foster homes. I had one kid one year, and it was around June. And he said, "Yeah, this is my fifth placement this year," right? At the
okay,
age of
yeah,
13. So
okay,
when we think about, hey, if I'm frequently moving at 13, I just met you at 13. So from 0 to 13, right? I can kind of
yeah,
imagine this is what life might have looked like for you. So you're used to having relationships built, but also them taken away quickly due to just how the system goes.
and I understand it. And you know, let me tell you, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm having a detachment
Mm-hmm.
and an attachment.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I'm trying to attach myself to some of the words you saying and detach myself from what I don't know.
Listen,
Matriculate,
I'm sorry.
what's a matriculate? What's a matriculate? You know, I'm from Baltimore, so you know, even though I'm not residing in Baltimore, you know, you gotta break it down from you talk about matriculate. I don't know what that
Yes.
means.
So matriculate is just moving forward, right? Going through different
Oh,
processes.
okay, well,
That's
hey,
it.
you know what? Right here on the Unspoken Word Podcast, we speak words that we can understand. So when we move forward the process, we are all good. You feel me? I kind of like that. Yeah,
Yes.
sometimes I make a little jokey joke here and
You
there, but
crack me up.
I'm trying to keep up with the pace because it's like I feel like I feel like this is very important.
Yes.
And you can, you know, I don't want to make it too serious and things like that, but at the same token, humor helps.
Yes.
And humor helps. You get a lot of kids, even for myself. You know, humor helps me get along.
Mhm.
It helps me navigate some of these moments of stress.
Yes.
So, are these some of the tools that you try to teach or you highlight and some of the clients to say, hey, you know, this is your what they call it? It's something when you
Defense
come on,
mechanisms.
there you go. Same thing. So
Yes.
how do we do that? I mean, do you teach them that or you highlight them that or
So a lot of times, right, when you're looking at defense mechanisms, you're just kind of listening to people talk, and then you'll be able to see what their defense mechanisms are, right? Are people an avoidant type? Because sometimes people are just avoidant where they say, you know what, this is tough and I just need to escape, right? So then sometimes people may overuse humor because they don't want to really address the reality of what's happening. So for me as a
okay.
clinician, the importance is one, acknowledging what's happening in this moment, right? And then figuring
Mhm.
out how we can get out of this moment and move forward. Because if we stay
Okay,
there, right, then that's when we end up, having experiencing like depression, anxiety, right?
right.
Because we are trying to escape rather than acknowledge what's happening and move in a healthy way to acknowledge and cope with it.
Okay. Now I get it, I understand it. And because you got kids that go into homes, may go into facilities and they don't feel wanted.
Right.
They feel out of place. So they act out in certain ways to, I assume, assimilate. Is it assimilate themselves
Yes.
into the environment, or to be able to adjust without leading on to what's really going on. And when we deal with that, really want to discuss like some of the systematic gaps in mental health for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where 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 are we falling? Where are we falling short as a society? And when we talk about helping the youth, where
Right.
the system, where the gaps at? Where do you see the elements that need more work, or where we falling short at, or what is it we not actually achieving? Because right now it seems though we're falling way short based on the crime rate and the institutional rate, especially African American kids. But the thing about it is, it's not spilling over just into an African American environment. It's all throughout all society now. What's
So
your
I
thought?
think that's a good question, right? So I think I want to go back and go back to one point that you made. We got to
Okay.
realize that behavior is communication. So whatever we're doing, we're communicating something. Sometimes when we have youth who have experienced a lot of trauma, they may not be able to say, "Hey, I'm feeling sad," right? Or "I'm anxious," or "This made me feel this way," due to just their brain chemistry and the experiencing of trauma, right? Because a lot of times when we have youth who've been in the system, they have a lot of mistrust of the system. They have a lot of mistrust of others, a lot of mistrust of adults, right? And so
Right.
here we go. We want to be able to bridge these gaps. So we got to have to understand the reality of it, right? And the reality of it is sometimes we just got to start at the basics of just understanding what the needs are. So, like I mentioned before, we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those basic needs need to be met in order for there to be a change. Yes.
Oh, Maslow.
So Maslow, he's really important in psychology. But he says in order for you to thrive in life, right, you have to have those basic needs. So food, water, shelter. And I tell people all the time, listen, if you expect me to show up at work and do a good job, I can't do it on an empty stomach, right? I can't do it if I'm cold. I can't do it if I'm hungry. I can't do it if I'm tired. So when we think about youth inside of schools, and that because that's their main job, right? Education. And
Okay.
so we think we want them to go to school and excel. However, their lights were cut off. So they were cold all night. They didn't have any food in the refrigerator. So their meal is when they go to school, right? They still have clothes that's holy, that may be a little bit too small. How can we expect for them to excel? Right.
Okay.
And so when we go back to the question that you asked about how can we improve the crime rates and where are some of the gaps, we really have to address those basic needs. Because when you
Oh,
look at some of the crimes that they're committing, right, some of them are committing maybe crimes that society deems as a little bit serious. But then if you look at some of the other crimes, right, it's really trying to get those basic needs met. If you have someone and say, "Hey, I need to go steal so that I can provide food for myself and my siblings," then what? Right? Their need in that moment is to eat. So how are we addressing the poverty rates for youth?
now
How are we
that's a
ensuring, huh?
no. I wanted to stop you. I know you was on a roll. I swear you was on a good roll. And I asked about Maslow, and you left me way out there, right?
No, I
But
gave
no,
you Maslow's. I gave
no,
you Maslow.
I'm just messing with you. Check it out. So, but when you said between poverty and race, okay? Now this is a good format because everything isn't always stemming at poverty level because
Right.
you have suburban kids, you have urban kids.
Yes.
But for those suburban children that you
Mhm.
may have seen come through the system that had two parents in a home, that had a nice living, but yet and still something clicked in them to make them go astray that put them in a situation. So
Right.
that is that. What's the element of that if it's not racial or economics?
It goes back to two, how are we showing up? Because I could provide you with food, shelter, and water. But am I
Uh,
giving you those other things that are needed, right? Am I telling you that I love you? Am I making you feel seen? Am I making you feel heard? Because a lot of times it goes beyond those material things. If we say, hey, I have given you all the basic needs for you to excel, right? Then now we have to see, like I mentioned before, all behavior is communication. Okay. So what are you trying to communicate to me? Where is their gap, right? Because maybe I may think I'm showing up for you in a way that you need it, but in reality, that's not what I need, right? So it goes back to also communicating. Okay. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're like, and your partner continues to buy you gifts, but that's not your love language, are you really going to be happy? No, because that's not how you need them to show up. It all depends on the gift. But if they continue to give you gifts all the time and that's not how you need them to show up, then after a while, those gifts aren't going to make you happy. Oh, but I like gifts. Right. So that may be your love language then. No, I just want a gift. I want Maseratis or something like that. But if your person can't afford that Maserati and they just continue to buy you some chocolate bars, then what? It's gonna mess with my blood sugar. My point exactly. So your needs aren't getting met. No, I'm messing with you. Your needs aren't getting met, right? So it goes back to our needs getting met. Mm-hmm. And when they aren't getting met, then that's when we see certain things occur. Right. Understood. So now, with that being said, and I think we discussed this previously, we didn't get into it, but we talked about protective factors. Mm-hmm. Some things that you put in place to help the youth thrive. So, what are some of the protective factors that, matter of fact, what is a protective factor? Because I'm looking at these terms. I did a little research. Okay. So I knew when I was coming on, I was going to be talking to a doctoral candidate, you know, in this day and age, I had to come with some sort of sense about myself. Because one thing about, I don't want to come to the public and I know at least a little something what I'm talking about, because I'm trying to give everyone a forum or a format. And like you said, people's needs aren't being met. Yes. They don't feel heard. So in this form, in this format, on this podcast, I want individuals who are listening to us now or who know someone, I want them to understand that their voice is being heard. When you make a comment, I'm gonna look at the comments. And actually, I'm gonna look at the comments. I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna see, well, hey, who is looking for something? Who may be looking to be heard? Who can I reach out to that might need this form or this format in order to get their point across or help them heal and move forward in that sense. I'm gonna give a shout out first. Oh, in the meantime, I'm looking in the comments. I gotta give a shout out to, I guess I can call him my mentor, Shake Rock. And we got some family members on here. Beverly, how you doing? You know, I'm not used to this. Del Rhea, how you doing? And I'm checking out. Look, Del Rhea, how you doing? And CC3956. I don't know who that is, but thank you for the comment on the intro. Good to go. Now, I had to give you a break so you can get you some water or something. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Now, getting back to the matter at hand, we were talking about some protective factors. Could you explain to me what are protective factors and what can we do? What are we talking about? So protective factors are things that are in place that are going to allow us, when we are experiencing some adversity, for us to reach out to them and utilize them, so that maybe we, instead of saying, hey, I may relapse today, or I may go and reoffend, then I'm going to reach out and talk to my mentor so that I can let them know what's happening, and we can kind of figure it out in process. And so for everyone, protective factors can look different, right? Some protective factors are people's partners. It could be churches. It could be mentors. It could be siblings. Go ahead, I'm listening. So when you talk about protective factors, it's all individualized. Okay. No, I had a little break in here. Some things I was trying to figure out what was going on. I see. Yeah,
I just had a little a mental lapse, but I'm
No, you're
back now.
fine. Because if you think about it, maybe on a tough day that you have, maybe you have someone that you always call on a tough day. That's one of those protective factors. So instead of you saying, I'm going to, you know, go do something crazy, I'm going to call this person up and figure it out and talk about it and kind of release whatever I need to release and get back on a level ground.
Okay. Well, I just had an interesting comment come up from Antonio Ellis. So you guys are my protective factors.
Yes.
We protecting you from who? Yourself? That's my guy. You know, you got to really hone, you gotta hone them, sometimes you got to reel some people back in, you know, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing to do. So when we talk about that, what does, I mean, from your perspective, what does real rehabilitation look like? And if we see advancements in the kids, what does it actually look like? Is there a face to rehabilitation?
So I don't think that there's a true face to rehabilitation. Only because rehabilitation is very individualized. You have some people who may need a lot more than others. And so for rehabilitation, it's very much doable for all. The reality of it is, are the resources accessible to all? So accessibility is one of those major gaps that we see in mental health treatment and youth being able to be rehabilitated, right? So the accessibility is key.
Yeah.
It's key.
Is there a limitation in accessibility?
I think there's always going to be one.
Well, I use the wrong word, not limitation. Is there a lack of accessibility when it comes to finding assistance for mental issues or things? Is there a lack of? Is there a lack of? I don't know. Is there a lack of help out there? I don't know.
I think definitely, right? One of the things that's super important to getting help, one is education. I think that a lot of times in society, when we think about like especially Black and brown people, right? There's a stigma around mental health.
Okay.
So when we say, hey, you go need to see a therapist, right? People think that you have to be quote unquote crazy in order to see a therapist, not understanding that therapy does not mean that you're crazy. It's giving you an outlet to communicate what you need. It's giving you an outlet to think about things a little bit differently from unbiased and unskewed perspectives. Because if I go say I bring this concern to one of my friends, their response may be tailored to something they know I want to hear. When we think about going to therapy, they're going to challenge some of those thought processes. Because in reality, we have to unlearn some things in order for us to improve this quality of life, in order for us to break these generational holds.
Now, you know what? I'm going to tell you, you made a good point. You got to unlearn. You got to unknow. You got to unknow. And that ain't even a word I don't think. You know, you got to unknow what you think you know.
Yep.
Because what you think you know, you may have learned it in a destructive or a not so healthy way.
Yes.
I get it. I get it. So as far as now we're talking about that would be part of like, I don't know, household and or community responsibilities, right? You know, and we look at some reform ideas. I really, to tell you the truth, I really don't know of what I would say would be a reform idea. What would you say to the community as to what is not just missing necessarily? What can the community do? Because you know, at one time it used to be, oh, it takes a village to raise a child. That's an old saying, right?
Yeah.
But now you have individuals that, hey, I don't want the village to help me raise my child. Is that some sort of deniability? Because if your child is having issues, but you don't want the help, or you don't want nobody to step in, I know you probably see that a lot, and then they wind up in the facility. So what's the, I don't know. I just gave you the scenario, but tell me something about it, because maybe you can straighten it out for me, because I don't know.
So I think you want to understand is that too, one, right? That could be a trauma response.
Okay.
That we pass on. So maybe, for example, you have a mom and saying like, yeah, I know my child may need some help. However, I don't want help from these people because maybe a few years ago when they were a child, right? The village that was supposed to help them maybe didn't give them a voice, maybe took their voice away, maybe exacerbated and provided them with some more trauma, right? So the reality of it is that too, maybe that community that we've seen has shifted a little bit, right?
Okay.
That it's not as welcoming as it used to be. Because too, sometimes we're passing on some of that learned stuff that maybe we shouldn't be passing on. That we have to really let go and say, you know what, that's unhealthy. I don't want my child to grow up and experience this the way I did it or the way I've experienced it. And sometimes people take offense to that when they say, hey, I don't want help from the community because maybe they've seen that the community really is not going to provide them with the help that's going to be beneficial. The community may provide them with help that's comfortable, community with help that they're used to.
Ooh, that's whoa! You just hit me with a jewel, like a jewel from the Nile or something like that. They're gonna hit me with something that's comfortable.
Yes,
that's different. I mean, when you said that, I had to think about like comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So what, man? I wouldn't. I don't know. That's something maybe you have to elaborate on later on. I don't know. But when you said it, it kind of sparked something in me. I felt some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. I don't know how to feel. Well, maybe
Because
you know
we
what?
think about it. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but we think about it, right? We always say that's how I was raised.
Okay.
Right. And just because that's how we was raised does not mean that that was quote unquote the correct way. Doesn't mean that it provided us with the appropriate skills to flourish in childhood, but also in adulthood as well. Maybe we've grew up that way, but it also was a way for us to silence and swallow our emotion and continue to push forward because we had to.
Okay. And in doing that, because you are in this field, I'm gonna ask you a question. Give me a moment of something that really moves you the most in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you talk about mental health and we have individuals in the facility trying to help out the youth, right? Or the
Yes.
adults, you often, I don't know if you can differentiate the two, but you have to be some sort of way impacted by what you see.
Yes.
So is it a particular moment or something that moved you that may have given you a more drive to say, you know what, I really got to dig into this? Or is it something? Now, we're not going to break no HIPAA laws or nothing like that.
Of
What I'm
course
saying
not.
is, you know, just so people know, I know about HIPAA. Not the hip on your side, not the hubba hippo. I'm talking about I don't want to ask you no questions to put nobody's business out there that's going to invade on somebody's privacy to be like, oh, it's been a HIPAA law been broke. We're not doing that right there. I'm just starting a little old podcast to help a lot of old people. I don't want no trauma, no drama. But anyway, back to the program at hand. So
Yeah.
tell me something. Tell me something that you know that kind of gave you a little boost.
So I think too part of my background was I was a teacher for 3 years, right, at a mental health facility. And that was a different environment, right? Because like I mentioned, inside of trainings for teachers, they don't provide the reality of mental health and how mental health is going to impact you, and how the mental health is going to impact the students that you serve. And so one of the students actually wrote a letter to me saying like, hey, Ms. Eades, I really appreciate you. However, I don't like your class because I struggle, right? I struggle with reading, I struggle with my mental health. But every day when I come, you provide me with a sense of hope, right? So that was one of those things because for me, my goal is to provide youth with a sense of hope, no matter understanding where they came from, what got them there, understanding this is a moment, right? And that they can work through and process, and that there's a lot of things greater that comes a little bit later.
Right.
But when it came to me being a licensed clinician, I had one client, and he was really, really resistant, really resistant. Like he would come and he would just look at me and just
Mm-hmm.
look at me, and I would ask questions, and it would just be okay, no, yes, right. And then the thing about it is being a clinician is like you really have to meet your clients where they are, understanding that there's still a stigma with mental health, and that it gets passed down, right. And so when this client showed up every time, I was consistent. I showed him that, hey, even though you may be resistant and may not want to talk about life and what's happened and what got you here, right? I'm still going to continue to show you that I care and that I want you to be able to work through and process it. So about 3 4 months later down the road, we had a breakthrough.
Okay.
And he came in, and he one day I'm just like, I do an activity with him, asking him about where he see himself at in 5 years, right? Which is I like to do with a lot of my clients, especially the 16 and up ages, just so they can
Okay.
get a little gauge. And so he really opened up about where he's seen himself at in 5 years. And where he's
Okay.
seen himself at in 5 years was still a part of the system.
Right.
And so for me, that was a little heartbreaking because it's like you have so much potential, right? The
Okay.
system doesn't have to be your future and your livelihood. But when we go back to the comfortability aspect of it, right? He had been a
Mm-hmm.
part of the system for so long that he saw himself in the system as an adult, right? Just due to him trying to gain needs and make it and get his needs met. And so we talked about it. We said, well, I had a conversation and said, well, tell me more about why you feel like in 5 years you may be incarcerated.
Right. Is
Right.
that was that like loss of hope? Like loss of because some people lose hope in situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I want to commend you for what you wake up every morning and do, because what
Thank
you're
you.
doing is you're you're putting yourself in a position to help other people have hope in what will otherwise seem to be a seemingly lost cause, abandonment.
Yes.
Where they do shelter themselves in silence. They do act out, and they don't speak out, but they act out, right?
Yes.
And I would say that, and I would ask you to say, if it was a young person listening today that feels trapped by their past or stuck somewhere, or even an older person right now that feels trapped, feels stuck in a rut, somewhere where you don't feel comfortable. You
Mm.
know, what would you from a clinician's point, what would you say to them? Because we're going to talk to them right now directly. What can we say to them right now to let them know that we do understand.
Yes.
You know, we do understand, and we want to give you an outlet. We want to give you a voice because you're not alone. And with that being in mind,
Mm.
I definitely want to thank you. Is there any words that you want to say or anything you want to leave the public with before we start to wrap up here?
Yes. So I want to say first, it's important to always bet on yourself no matter what life has given you, no matter who has been for you, who has been against you. At the end of the day, always count on yourself. And then two, you already made it through 100% of your bad days. So when another bad day comes, understand that you are well equipped to conquer this bad day. And that because you conquered another bad day, it doesn't mean that that bad day will conquer you. So you control it, not let it control you. And so a lot of the times we allow those situations that may be tough, that may be challenging, to control us because we don't feel like we have the tools in order for us to control a situation, but not realizing that we've experienced and encountered a lot of bad situations and bad days that we have already conquered. So everything that you need is within you. You have to believe that it's within you and continue to push through.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
really,
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate your honesty. I'm glad. I know the public will appreciate your expertise in your expounded vernacular. And anytime, because we're doing a service, and with this service, I want to bring individuals that know what they're talking about.
Yes.
To let people feel as though and know that, hey, we're giving you something, and we're here for you.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out, and hey, good luck keeping on doing what you're doing. You're making big waves out here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let me. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to tell everybody out here, thank y'all for coming through. Thank y'all for checking me out. I think we had a very, very, very insightful session, and I love y'all. I'm gonna go on back. I'm gonna leave y'all with a good ending. And as always, this is where the rubber meets the road, and you can come to have your voice heard. This is Chuck Ellis, getting ready to sign out.
This has been the Unspoken